Well, let's go to the subject of full employment. What's the number? It really is a guessing game that employers, unions, Treasury and the Reserve Bank constantly grapple with. Technically, it's called the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. In other words, the perfect point at which employment markets are in total balance, where people who want jobs can get one, but wages don't add to inflation. It's called NAIRU. The unions claim the number is much lower. Others say it's around 4.5%. Now, let's go here to Andrew McKellar from the Australian Council of Chamber and Industries. He's with me now from Canberra. Andrew, what's the number for NAIRU, do you think?
Look, hi Ross, great to be with you. Look, I think this really is a question for the economists, and I think if you look at the best evidence both from the Reserve Bank itself, from the Federal Treasury, then you do see numbers between 4 and 4.5% as being, effectively the level of full employment. Now, at the moment, we're seeing the unemployment rate down around 3.5%. And I would say, on the experience of business, we have been at or beyond full employment, particularly over the last 12 months. The labour market is extremely tight. We're only just starting to see some of that pressure easing at the moment as net overseas migration has been picking up through the course of this year.
OK, so the argument here, and of course you go through this with the wages claims, is that because there's a lack of workers out there, it adds to the pressure for wages to rise, which adds to inflation, which therefore adds to the pressure for interest rates to rise. That's your argument about trying to restrain some of these wage claims.
Well, those are the pressures that we're seeing in business every day. We've seen a situation where the number of vacancies out there is more or less on a par with the number of unemployed. Now, that's an almost unprecedented situation. The level of participation in the labour market is extremely high. It's very tough to fill vacancies. Yes, there is growing wages pressure. Obviously, we've had a long period of lower inflation and lower wages growth. That is changing. And what we don't want to see happen is that higher wages claims become entrenched and that just builds in or locks in higher inflation for longer, because the Reserve Bank has said in those circumstances it will continue to raise interest rates, and that is taking a toll on the economy.
It is. Well, it's interesting you say that, because we pulled out from her last major speech before she was announced as the new Reserve Bank Governor, Michelle Bullock, who was talking about this very point about where is this number of full employment. Just have a little listen to what she had to say.
We are hoping that we can bring inflation down a bit more gradually, keep inflation expectations anchored, and keep at least the unemployment rate will have to rise, but hopefully not. We think actually it was probably the unemployment rate was above the NAIRU before the pandemic. We think there was lots of evidence that suggested that it could come lower. 4.5 probably looks, we think, maybe in the ballpark.
So as you point out, Andrew, she's saying 4.5% there, but unions want it to be somewhere in the 3s. The interesting side about this is that there's a lot of other stuff going on. The government could very well be adding to the pressure for the wages increases by the very nature of its industrial relations reforms it's trying to push through right now.
Well, I think there are a lot of challenges there. And look, frankly, what I'm hearing from the ACTU at the moment on this amounts to little more than economic illiteracy. And if you follow their prescription, then ultimately I think it risks vandalism in terms of some of the outcomes that we're going to see in the economy. So I think we're very wary of some of that agenda, and we urge the government to be very careful about what it does next. Of course, business is concerned about some of the proposals on industrial relations changes. We don't want to go backwards in areas of labour hire, casual employment flexibility, the ability for independent contractors to be able to enter freely into the market, offer their services, and arrive at outcomes which work both for the customer, the client, as well as the person providing that service. So
yes,
we've got to keep that flexibility in the economy, and we are concerned that some of the ideas that are being discussed could go in the wrong direction.
Andrew McKellar, always good to chat to you here on the program. NAIRU, that's going to be the name, if you like, that a lot of people are going to hear in these coming months and weeks ahead.